Hey, it's me, named Jenny Lee, and I'm here with another Raw book discussion. This is going to be session 33, so this will be video number 34. Don says, in our last session you cautioned each to look well to the vital energies necessary for non-depletion of the instrument, Carla, and the contact level. Did that mean that we should, Jim and Don, look at the instrument or be careful of the instrument's vital energies or be careful of our own vital energies? Each entity is responsible for itself. The mechanics of this process takes place. The mechanics of this process taking place involve, firstly, the use of the physical body complex of third density with its accompanying physical material in order to voice these words. So Carla has to use her body to speak. Yeah. Thus, the instrument needs to watch its vital energies carefully, for we do not wish to deplete this instrument. Secondly, the function of the supporting group may be seen to be firstly that of protection for this contact, secondly that of the energizing instrument and intensifying its vital energies. So they're helping protect and also give energy. This supporting group has always, due to its underlying harmony, been a very stable nature as regards protection and love and light, and thus ensuring the continuation of this narrow band contact. However, the vital energies of either of the supporting members being depleted, the instrument must then use a larger portion of its vital energies, thus depleting itself more than would be profitable on a long-term basis. So Don and Jim both need to have their energies at a good level too, or then Carla has to use more of hers. So they're very, very connected in with each other. Please understand that we ask your apology for this infringement upon your free will. However, it is our distortion understanding that you would prefer this information rather than being left totally on your own dedication distortions, deplete the instrument or deplete the group to the point where the contact cannot be sustained. Which means that Ra just told them some stuff he shouldn't have said because it went against their free will. But, you know, Ra's getting some out of this deal too. Okay. Next, Don asks, can you give us advice on how to maintain the best possible condition for maintaining the contact? Ra says, we've given information concerning the proper naturing of this channel, therefore repeating ourselves only in two ways in general. Firstly, we suggest that rather than being brave and ignoring a physical complex weakness distortion, it's good to share this distortion with the group. Thus, remove one opportunity for contact with which is very wearying to the instrument in order that another opportunity might come about in which the instrument is properly supported. So don't pretend like something's not right. Don't try to put on a brave face if you're having something going on. You got to be honest about it. Secondly, the work begun in harmony may continue. Harmony, thanksgiving, and praise for opportunities and of the Creator. These are your protection. These are our suggestions. We cannot be specific, for your free will is of the essence in this contact. As we said, we only speak to the subject because of our grasp of your orientation turns long-term maintenance of this contact. So remember, previously in one of the last sessions, they were worried about protecting, you know, your energy, and specifically Carla from Orion groups or things that might be negative. And Ra said, Thanksgiving, praise for your opportunities in the Creator, and knowing that that we're all of one thing were the ways to protect yourself. Okay. Next, Don says the instrument has a device of so-called color therapy. In the past session, the concept of different colors. I was wondering if these apply to the principle of color therapy and the shining of particular colors on the physical body. Does this have any beneficial effect? Can you tell me something about it? So Carla has some sort of device that uses color as a form of therapy, and Dawn wants to know if it's worth it. This therapy is somewhat clumsy and variably useful tool of instigating an energy entity's mind-body-spirit complex and intensification of energies or vibrations, which may be of aid to the entity. The variableness of this device is due firstly to the lack of true colors used, and secondly to the extreme variation in sensitivity to the vibrations among your people. So I think the device has colors that are off, but I'm wondering if our perception of colors is not correct either. Because each individual person's perception of color can be very different. And as an artist and an art teacher, I have come to find that out on a regular basis, that people's perception, one person's perception of a color might be completely different than somebody else's perception of the same color. And who's right and who's wrong? So if you're having some sort of device that does color therapy, but nobody really knows what the color actually looks like, or nobody knows what the color's actually really supposed to be, because we're only experiencing it through our perception, then it may or may not work as much as it should. Then he says, Ross says, secondly, to the extreme variation in sensitivity to vibration among your peoples. Is he talking about Carla's extreme sensitivity? Or the color's extreme sensitivity? I'm not sure. Don said, I would think that you could achieve a true color by passing the light through a crystal of the particular color. Is that correct? This would be one way of approaching accuracy in color. It is a matter of what you call quality control that the celluloid used is the varying color. This is not great or even visible variation. However, it does make some difference given specific applications. Possibly the use of the prism breaking the white light into the spectrum and then screening all the parts of the spectrum except for that which you used to pass through a slit would be even better. True? Correct. So there you go. Don's such a smart fella. He's figured out exactly how to get the true color if you're breaking down the light. But if you're trying to use some sort of device of which you pass the light through because you think that color's orange, maybe not so much. All right, I was wondering if there's a programming of experiences that causes an individual to get certain catalyst in his daily life. For instance, if we go through our daily life, there are many things that we can experience. We look at these experiences as occurring by pure chance or by a conscious design of ours, like making appointments or going places. I was just wondering if there's a behind-the-scenes programming of catalysts to create the necessary experiences for rapid growth in the case of some entities. Does this happen? The incarnating entity, which has become conscious of the incarnative process, so someone who is conscious that they're incarnate, that they're a soul and a body, and thus programs its own experience, may choose the amount of catalyst or the number of lessons which it will undertake to experience and to learn from in one incarnation. Okay, let's stop there for a second. So Ra is saying that if you figured out that you are an incarnative being in a human fleshy sack of meat and blood, sorry, I got a little gross there, that you have the opportunity to choose the number of lessons and the catalyst of which you will experience and grow. So does that mean that someone who's completely oblivious to the fact that they are a soul and a body, and they just think that their body is all that there is, doesn't have that opportunity? It kind of sounds like it. I don't know. An incarnating entity which has become conscious of the incarnative process programs its own experience. I guess that's what he's saying. Let's continue. This does not mean that all is predestined, but rather there is an invisible guidelines shaping events which will function according to this programming. Thus, if one opportunity is missed, another will appear until the student of the life experience grasps that a lesson is being offered and undertakes to learn it. So if you don't catch it the first time, try again until you realize that it's some crap you need to learn and you actually learn something from it. That makes sense. All right, then these lessons would be programmed as a life experience continues. Let's say an entity develops a bias that he actually didn't choose to develop prior to incarnation. It is then possible to program experiences so that they will have opportunity to alleviate this bias through balancing. Correct? Precisely correct. I always love when Ross says precisely correct to Dawn. It's like a little sense of pride. Like, good job, Dawn. Good job. Then from this, I would extrapolate, that's a great word, to the conjecture that the orientation in mind of the entity is the only thing that is of any consequence at all. The physical catalyst that he experiences will be a function strictly of his orientation in mind. And then the example gets deleted. And the example gets deleted, we find out a little while later because you'll see. Okay. The mind governing the catalyst. And then Ra says, we prefer not to use any well-known examples. Sayings or adages due to the tremendous amount of distortion which any well-known saying has undergone. Therefore, we're asking you to delete the example. So Dawn gave some very common, well-known example, and Ra thinks that the distortions around that are too great. So they ask if he'll delete it, and he does. It's completely true to the best of our knowledge that the orientation or polarization of the mind-body-spirit complex is cause of the perceptions generated by each entity. Okay. Thus, a scene may be observed in your grocery store. Okay, now Ra gives an example. The entity ahead of self may be without sufficient funds. One entity may then take this opportunity to steal. Another may take this opportunity to feel itself a failure. Another may unconcernedly remove the least necessary items, pay for what it can, and go about its business. The one behind the self observing may feel compassion, may feel an insult because of standing next to the poverty-stricken person, may feel generosity, may feel indifference. I think this is a fantastic example. Because hasn't everybody experienced this at some point of both sides of that coin? Where you went to purchase something and you realized you didn't have enough money, or you've been behind someone in the line where they didn't have enough money, and like all of those things happen, right? Like one person might steal it, one person might feel like they've been a failure because they don't have enough money to pay for the thing that they want, so a feeling of shame or guilt. Another person it's not a big deal, they'll just not get everything that they were planning to get. And then the people observing it have the same stuff happen. Somebody might feel sorry for them and feel compassion. Some person, not me, because I'm always like the generous one. Like if I have the extra to give, I'm like the one who's like, hey, I'll help pay for that. Or here, use my MVP card or whatever, you know. But some jackasses, probably Orion groups, are like, oh my god, a poor person. You guys know who you are. Hopefully none of you are watching this. I doubt it. If you're here, you're probably not one of those people. So, yeah, biases from the orientation or polarization of your mind-body-spirit complex. Perceptions of the stuff around us. Okay. All right. So then Ra says, now do you see the analogies in a more appropriate manner? I do, says Dawn. Then from this I will extrapolate, there's that great word again, the concept, which is somewhat more difficult because even fourth density positive has the concept of defensive action. But above the fourth density, the concept of defensive action is not in use. The concept of defensive action, and he laughs here, offensive action, are very much in use in this present experience. So Don is saying, let's go back to what Don is saying. So in a previous session, remember, Ra explains that there's this galactic battle going on between the positive and negative, or what we would think of as good and evil. Like the Confederation are the good guys, and they're trying, they're the service to others orientation. And then there's the Orion group people who are the service to self, and they're like constantly battling with each other. But nobody can ever win, because the Confederation people, the service to self, the service to others, is never really going to like be on the offensive. They're like just kind of defending themselves, but they're not going to like attack. It's the Orion group that attacks, but they just defend. But Don's making a joke about how in our density there's definitely a lot of offensive and defensive things going on. Okay. All right. I'm assuming then that if an entity is polarized strongly enough in his thought in a positive sense, defensive action is not going to be necessary for him, because the opportunity to apply defensive action will never originate for him. Is this correct? It's unknowable. An entity able to program experiences may choose the number and the intensity of lessons to be learned. It is possible that an extremely positive-oriented entity might program for itself situations testing the ability of self to refrain from defensive action, even to the point of a physical death, or self or other self. This is an intensive situation, and it is not known what entities have programmed. We may, if we desire, read the programming. However, this is an infringement, and we choose not to do so. Interesting. So I've been trying to wrap my head around this part. This part is kind of confusing to me. So Don was thinking that a very positively oriented person wouldn't come across situations where they needed to be defensive. But Ra is saying that it's really up to the programming that the entity made for themselves. And it can be even to the extreme of being like a martyr of some sort, because they refuse to be of defensive action, and it might result in their death of themselves or other self even. It's an intensive lesson, but it's not known what people program, even though we can look at it. They choose not to. Okay. I love when Don asks about movies. I will ask you if did you watch this movie called The Ninth Configuration? Ra, did you go to the movie theater and see it? So The Ninth Configuration is a 1980 psychodrama. It's the second installment of William Peter Blatty's Faith trilogy. So he's the guy who wrote The Exorcist. So it's like the second installment of this Faith trilogy. Not The Exorcist 2, that's different. But the person who actually wrote The Exorcist, it's the second part, of which I've never heard of it before. And I do enjoy The Exorcist, so I think I need to watch this. So Ross says, we scan your mind complex and see this configuration called the Ninth Configuration. Does Ra really talk like a robot? I don't know. This motion picture brought out this point of which we have been talking. And the entity, the kernel, had to make a decision at that point. I was just wondering, with respect to polarity, his polarization. He could have either knuckled under to the negative forces, but he chose to defend his friend instead. Is it possible for you to estimate which is more positively polarizing, to defend the positively oriented entity or allow the suppression by the negative oriented entities? So now I see where Don was going with this. He had it in his mind because you watched this movie. This question takes in the scope of fourth density as well as your own. Good to know. And its answer may best be seen by the action of the one you call Jesus. What is this other name? Jehoshua? Somebody who knows how to pronounce that. I don't. But it's Jesus. This entity was to be defended by its friends. The entity reminded its friends to put away the sword. This entity then delivered itself to be put to the physical death. Wow. This particular information has been coming up a lot in the past week. The Jesus stuff. And the fact that here it is again, even though I've read this like weeks ago for the first time, here it is showing up again is significant for me. It's a confirmation about something for me, which I won't go into right now, but okay, so let's back up a little bit here. Don's asking, is it more positive to defend your positive friend or allow the negative to do what they will? And Ra's using the example of Jesus. Jesus's friends wanted to defend him, and Jesus said, no, I'm just going to let myself get killed. The impulse to protect the loved other self is one which persists through the fourth density, a density abounding in compassion. More than this, we cannot and need not say. Okay. So, Ra didn't answer the question. Is it more positive to defend your friend or allow them to be taken over by the negative entities? Only gave the example of Jesus with his friends, but didn't say whether it was better or worse. Didn't say whether it was more positively polarizing or not. I shouldn't say better or worse. But interestingly enough, this happens all the way through the fourth density, because remember, the fourth density is all about love, and love is love. Love is love is love. And if you love someone else in any kind of non-superficial way, you're going to want to be defensive of them when something bad is happening to them. Okay. As we near the end of this master cycle, there may be an increasing amount of catalyst for entities. I am wondering if the planetary vibrations mismatch somewhat with the fourth density vibrations and catalyst is increased. If this will create a slight amount of more polarization, thereby getting a slightly greater positive harvest because of this catalyst, and in the same way create a more negative polarization that gets a more slight amount more negative harvest by this mechanism of transition that is unfortunately somewhat more catalytic than it would be if the planet had reached a higher state of consciousness. Good God, Don. This question is like, you guys have been talking to Ra too long. Whew. Okay. So let's back up. So remember in 1981, Ra is saying that they're ending one of these 25, not only ending one of the 25,000 year cycles, but it's the end of like the big 75,000 year cycle for our planet. Okay? Okay. And because it's the end of the major cycle, our planet is moving into fourth density. Not all of the people on the planet are moving into fourth density, just the planet itself. So there's this mismatch of planetary vibrations, is what Dawn is referring to. So Dawn's wondering if, because it's the end of the master cycle, and because we're moving into the fourth density planetarily, if there's going to be more things that happen to cause people to polarize quicker one way or the other, positive or negative. Here is Ra's answer. The question might be answered in two parts. Firstly, the planetary catastrophes are a symptom of the difficult harvest rather than a consciously programmed catalyst for harvest. So terrible stuff that happens on the planet to the planet is not programmed. It's a symptom of a difficult harvest where people should be moving up to the fourth density, but they're not. It's causing all these catastrophes on the planet. Thus, we do not concern ourselves with it, for it is random in respect to the conscious catalyst, such as we may make available. So it's real random. It's just a random set of consequences because nobody got their shit together. Okay. The second portion of this, the results of the random catalyst of what you call the earth changes are also random. Thus, we may see probability, possibility vortices going towards positive and negative. However, it will be as it will be. The true opportunities for conscious catalyst are not a function of the earth changes, but of the result of the seniority system of incarnations, which at the time of harvest has placed in incarnation those whose chances of using life experiences to become harvestable are best. Blah. What are we talking about here, Ra? Okay. So any planetary catastrophes and earth changes, as in weather, warming and cooling, they're all random. But the true opportunities for conscious catalysts, for things changing to polarize one way or the other, are not a function of the earth changes, but a result of the seniority system of incarnation, which remember is people who have made it through the sub-levels of the third density, because there's what, 7 or 8 sub-levels for each density. The ones who've made it to the upper levels of the third density have a seniority system because they're closer to reaching the next density. And because they're closer to reaching the next density, they're given a little push and a nudge through the door to try to get them even closer to fourth density, because that's the goal. So the senior entities that are incarnated might have more catalysts to grow even more in that last little push to the next density. Okay. Is this seniority system also used for the service to self side of becoming harvestable? Correct. So you gotta remember, it's not just the positive service to self people, it's also the negative service, or the positive service to others. It's also the negative service to self. They're all trying to get to the same place. It's just different ways. Next question. What I would like for you to do is list the major mechanisms designed to provide catalytic experience that do not include interaction with other self. So things that provide a chance to polarize that are just individual. The primary mechanism of catalytic experience in the third density is other self. It's interacting with others. The list of other catalytic influences: firstly, the creator's universe; secondly, the self. So we get the most out of interacting with others, and then with the universe itself, and then with ourself. That makes sense. Can you list any subheadings under the self or ways that the self is acted on catalytically to produce experience. Firstly, the self unmanifested. Secondly, the self in relation to the social self, societal self, created by self and the other self. There's too many selves in one sentence here. Thirdly, the interaction between self and the gadgets, toys, and amusements of the self-other self invention. It's interesting, this stuff starts coming up here. Fourthly, the self-relationship with those attributes which you may call war and rumors of war. Ways that the self can experience so they can grow. Themselves unmanifested. Themselves in relation to the societal structure that's been created through themselves and everybody else. The interaction with stuff that we've created. Phones, the internet, movies, video games, books, etc. And then the relationship with war, or the threat of war. Okay, let's continue. I was thinking possibly the catalyst of physical pain. Does this go under this heading? Correct. It going under the heading, this is correct. It going under the heading of the unmanifested self. That is, the self which does not need other self in order to manifest or act. So that's what unmanifested self means, or self unmanifested means, is that it doesn't need other self to have some sort of growth. All right. Can you list all major mechanisms designed to provide the catalyst that include action with other self? We could speak infinitely, or could simply state that any interaction betwixt, another great word, self and other self has whatever potential for catalysts that there exists in the potential difference between self and other self. This moderated and ungirded by the constant fact of the creator as self and other self. Okay, so pretty much anything, any interaction you have with somebody else has the potential to help you polarize one way or the other. All right. Okay. Next question. Is there any difference in violet ray activity or brightness between entities who are at the entrance level to fourth density positive and negative? Correct. The violet ray of the positive fourth density will be tinted with the green, blue, indigo triads of energies. So remember that the violet ray is crown chakra, and according to Ra, that's like the totality sum of all of your energies, balance, unbalance, distortions, and whatnot. So an entity that has reached the point where it's going to be able to enter the fourth density, or already is, a positive fourth density is going to have green, blue, and indigo kind of mixed in with it, because those are the higher chakras: heart, throat, third eye. Okay, now here's where things get interesting. This tinge may be seen as a portion of a rainbow or prism, the rays being quite distinct. Okay, here I wrote the word mother. Okay, so we need to do a little bit of a deep dive into the Twitch highlight category on my YouTube channel here. Because I experienced this energy field in a Twitch reading not too long ago. Okay, so it is called high density entity. So on YouTube, you want to go watch it. Oh, let me unpause it so my face isn't like some weird thing. Oh goodness. All right, let me show you. Okay, this is what it looks like. I've got a red shirt on with stripes and my black background with the lacy stuff, and it's called Team Weird Highlight High Density Entity. So, if you're interested in hearing what this prism of light looks like, it comes through in this reading. I saw it. It's the mother, which at the time we only knew her as the Lumerian mother for Charity Janice. It's who she came through for. Since then, we've discovered that this mother entity is a lot more than that. That she's definitely a high density entity who helps a lot of people. She's almost like the Divine Mother in some ways. Now, we haven't figured it all out yet, but it's looking like that. She comes in many forms to many different people to be able to, like, she appears slightly different to each person so that they can connect with her in a personal manner so that she can help guide them in like this very beautiful, loving way. But somehow she's also a little bit scary. And her energy is this prism of light of the green, blue, and indigo that looks like a rainbow or a prism. Like I say it in this particular Twitch highlight way before I ever read this. So, very cool, exciting, and interesting. And if you're watching this before August 30th, 2022, we're going to be doing a Witching Hours episode with Charity Janice over on my Twitch channel, and we're going to see if we can contact this mother entity again. I'm so excited because she's amazing, and so if you're interested in this particular topic of the mother and these higher density entities, you should definitely come check it out. August 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch, Medium Jenny Lee channel, the Witching Hours episode. I'm excited to try to channel her again because I think we're gonna get some pretty cool stuff out of it. Anyway, let's get back to this raw content. Now here's the fourth density negative. The violet ray of the fourth density negative has in its aura a tinge of red, yellow, and orange, the rays being muddied rather than distinct. So remember, red, orange, and yellow are the root, sacral, and solar plexus. Not saying there's anything bad with any of those chakras or any of those energy centers or any of those colors, but when someone is more connected to using their own power and will to get what they want, they're using those particular centers. So that's why the negative entities have these muddied up poo-poo auras. I'm just thinking about like when you mix a bunch of paint together, like trying to make a color and it turns out to be like doo-doo brown, you know? That's what I imagine the fourth density auras being. Doo-doo aura. Okay. What would the rays of the fifth and sixth density look like? We may speak only approximately. They don't know. They're only a fourth density, Dawn. There is a distinct difference in the color structure of each density. First density is perhaps best described as extremely white in vibration, or not first, fifth. Fifth density is extremely white. Sixth density of a whiteness which contains a golden quality as you would perceive it, these colors having to do with the blending into the wisdom of the compassion learned in the fourth density. Then in sixth density, the blending of wisdom back into the unified understanding of compassion viewed with wisdom. This golden color is not of your spectrum, but is what you would call alive. That sounds pretty cool. So let's back up here for a second. So a fourth density positive is going to be like a rainbow prism of the cool colors. The fourth density negative is going to be a muddied up doo-doo aura with some red, orange, and yellow. Fifth density is going to look really white. And the sixth density is going to look golden, but not a gold that we're aware of or that we know of, but is going to seem alive. That's really cool. Don asks if there's anything they can do to help Carla make her more comfortable. That's what they ask at the end of every session. Ra says it's working well. But then Ra says, may we say we enjoyed your vision of our social memory complex drinking one of your liquids while speaking through this instrument. We enjoyed your vision of our social memory complex drinking one of your liquids while speaking through this instrument. What in the hell are they talking about? Because at first I was like, so did they like give Carla some water like while she's like trying to communicate, like, channel Ra? But it's a vision of. So maybe Dawn was like wondering what it would be like to see Carla drink something while she's I don't know. But either way, Ra very much enjoyed it. Okay, let's review what we went over in this session. All right. We started out with Dawn, Jim, and Carla all need to keep their vital energies up so that everything works well, because they're already harmonious. They need to just make sure everybody is good to go so that it'll work correctly. And then they went into some color stuff, and we learned that the best, if you want to do anything with color, you really need to use a prism, shining light through a prism, because that's the way you're going to get the most correct colors if you're trying to do any color healing. Then Dawn asked a lot of questions about catalysts for growth. And we learned that if you're conscious of the incarnative process, that you're programming your own lessons. I'll talk more about polarizations and biases through the mind-body-spirit complex towards others and ourselves. Dawn wanted to know about defensive actions and what that means with positive polarities. And then the story about Jesus sacrificing himself came up, but Ra wasn't able to say if that is the most positively polarizing thing to do. I guess we can kind of assume that maybe it is, and that's why figures like Jesus and other martyrs get put on a pedestal, because they're willing to sacrifice their whole entire being, physical being, for the greater, what they see as the greater good. And then we moved on to issues with our planet moving into the fourth density, and that the earth changes and catastrophes are just random. Then Dawn wanted to know what kinds of things will help us grow that are strictly ourself things versus things that are from other people. And there was a whole laundry list of things that cause us to grow. And really, you could just pretty much say anything. Even like playing a video game was on the list, or gadgets and toys and stuff. But clearly there's going to be certain things that cause greater growth than some of the other things. And then we learned about what the violet ray looks like for the different densities, the positive fourth, the negative fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. And that was the end of this session 33. So once again, please join in on the discussion. Put in the comments what you think about all this stuff. Comments, concerns, complaints, questions you have. I'd love to hear it. Love to know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. There were so many raw videos before this one. If this just happens to be the first one you've come across, and there's going to be many, many more after this one, because I'm only on 30 something, and there's a whole nother book. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.